So in the Laurel, I plan to run a 350Z diff, which I've recently had built. It's got Nismo two-way manual 350Z ratio. It should be good for what I'm planning to do here, trying to keep it as strong as possible. That's why I've changed from the factory R200, same as S15, R33. But that comes with its own challenges in terms of mounting that diff in this car. So I'm going to show you how I've done that and some of the process along the way. You can see here that this front section where the nose of the diff bolts to the subframe, it actually has a step here now. I have cut this section, cut all the way up there, and there you might be able to see this line where it's been re-welded. I removed 10 millimeters of material and raised this whole section in the subframe and re-welded it before I got this powder coated. Some little plates in the sides here to add the strength in and fill the gaps, but this raises the diff to a point where the bottom of the diff is in line with the bottom of the subframe now, as the body of the 350Z diff is actually just bigger and it just hangs lower than the subframe. And this, so for anyone that knows 350Z, 370Z diffs, you will know that the rear hat only has one mounting lug. Don't know why. Very annoying for everyone involved trying to mount one of these into a S chassis subframe and keep any strength in it. So we're actually going to add another lug to this hat. I had these bushings machined up and anodized purple to match all the different suspension parts. These are to suit S chassis subframe, which is what the Laurel uses from factory. It's like S14, S15 rear subframe, same as the front end. This one is offset, obviously, for the passenger side diff mount. That'll suit the subframe and this stub location. I already worked out that center. This one is drilled in the center of the bushing because that'll be pressed into the subframe. Put in this diff will then be bolted into the subframe, into the car. I will then mark the center of this onto the diff hat, and then we're going to add material, tap a thread, do whatever we need to add a stud here so that this diff is held in place nice and strong. Better than one stud, better than the weird little brackets that people like to run. This would be a good solution to the problem. Now the bushings are in the subframe. There's a lot of effort to press those in, but we got there in the end. You can see the new Nismo two-way center in the 350Z housing. Everything's in place, bushings aligned. Now this obviously goes in the cradle that way. This one here. This one actually lines up with this little mark. I ran the drill through the bushing to mark the center. Now to make the mounting point in this side of the diff hat, which is actually quite nice that there's this nice big flat area here. The distance between the back of this bushing and this face is 10 millimeters. But 10 millimeters thick, if I were to weld just a bung on there with some thread in it, it's not quite deep enough to have enough strength to hold the force that's going to be going through this. So I've decided to drill on this center a 25 diameter hole, which will be about that exact outer distance there, and then machine up a bit of 25 mil round bar with a M12 thread tapped into the center of it. Cut that at 20 mil long, and then it'll slide through the hole that I cut in this with it protruding 10 millimeters, and then weld it. So then there's 20 mil thread depth instead of 10 just on the surface. I'm also going to drill out this breather port and tap it for an MPT thread so that I can run a braided hose to the diff breather catch can. And yeah, we'll get it back in the car. So now this hole is drilled in the diff hat. I've machined up the weld-in bung that will slide through there, set at 10mm height, welded in. Obviously I'm gonna blank the back of it off first though, so that the oil can't get out. Also, what's awesome is the hole perfectly lined up in this little square in the back there, which was not planned, but it's a nice little coincidence. The diff hat is all welded, all done. I made 2 of these lugs because I'm actually doing another one of these modifications for a friend of mine. And that's just the cap on the back of it so that it's blocked off. That's how it turned out, welded into the diff hat. It's actually really cool seeing just that little end of it poking through that one square in the diff hat. So very happy with that. It should be nice and strong. It's time to put it back in the car. So we've got the diff all mounted up in the cradle now. Bushing's done, bolted in. Very happy with how it's all turned out. You can see the dash 4 fitting that I added to the rear hat. That'll be for the diff oil catch can, which will mount here somewhere, then to drain back into the diff. So it's like a self-servicing system. Here we have the little diff breather catch can setup that I made. It has the inlet from the top of the diff hat to breathe into, and then this will recirculate into the dash 4 fitting on the bottom of the diff hat that I welded on. Obviously air filter for it to breathe. This will bolt to the subframe. This may not be completely necessary. I did have a similar setup in my last car, in the Toyota Sora. Because that car, actually, the diff did breathe quite a lot and it'd make a lot of mess under the car if I didn't have something to catch the oil. In that one, I had a little ball valve and I would drain it every now and then, which is kind of annoying for a diff setup. So this one, it'll drain back into itself and it'll be non-serviceable. It'll just take care of itself. But very happy with that. A nice little extra bit of fab work that I can show off under the back of the car. Nice little mount on it, and yeah, very happy with that. Final part to the diff install, which is obviously not highly necessary, but it's something that I'm happy to have made. Some little braided lines to plumb the catch can. This one will go from the top of the diff hat into the can to breathe into, obviously out through the air filter to get fresh air, and this lower hose will go on the base of the tank so it can drain back in, so it's a self-servicing system. Thanks for watching the video of the install of the 350Z diff into my Laurel. Same as S chassis subframe. I feel like this is a pretty common swap these days with people wanting to push more power through these cars and looking for something stronger in the rear end. So I'm hoping that this holds up, and we'll soon find out. I'm very happy with the install and how it's all gone. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below in the video. And yeah, thank you again.